Hey y'all, it's Laura, and I have another fun multi-photo layout for you today. This one is scrapping some photos of a tree in our backyard during the ice storm we had in February. And I have my December hip kit, which I am a member of their subscription service, and I'm trying to work my way through this kit because it's very snow and winter themed, and I don't usually have a lot of those photos to scrap, and so I'm determined to kind of push through it and use it up and not just add it to my stash like I normally do with my hip kits. I kind of integrate it into my stash and then go ahead and use it as I want to, and that way I don't just have kits piling up that are partially used. They become part of new stash kits. And this case though, this one is a very specific and very themed, and so my thought process was to go ahead and try to use it up using some snow and ice pictures because we actually had a real winter here in Mississippi for the first time in ages, and I got tons of pictures of the kids in the snow, of ice on the trees, which is what these are pictures of, the dogs in the snow, of me in the snow. So lots of great pictures that I have to scrap that I think I can use up or at least bust through most of this kit. So starting out with these beautiful two pink papers, I'm using one as a very thin stripe on one side and the other as the main base underneath of my three photos. Now this tree in our backyard had already started to bud in February, which should tell you how Mississippi winters usually go, and it was quite taken aback to find itself covered in ice for about a week out of nowhere. And so I did get some really cool pictures of these budded trees just covered in icicles. It was just too cool not to take pictures. So I have these photos, and I am going to create a long line of photos and this journaling spot on the left, and on the right I'm going to do a small cluster of embellishments and a title. I don't normally keep my photos and the embellishing so separate. However, I wanted to try something new. This is a fairly common design that a lot of people do, especially on the hip kit. They do this quite a lot, where they have like two separate areas of design on the page. And so I thought I'd give it a go. It's not a specific scrap lift, but it's just a lift of the idea of the design, if you will. And so I have this little pocket, and I have a doily from my stash, and I figured if I layered those together with this acetate tag, that would create a nice little cluster here at the bottom, just a little bit of interest added on the page. But it's not so bright and shiny that it pulls your attention away from the photos. Now adding into this, the Hip Kit Club's Facebook group had a challenge to use pink and yellow only on the layout. And so that's the other part of this layout, is I'm trying to fit that challenge as well, because I love a good challenge. I love something that makes me stretch my crafty, creative muscles a little bit, and this definitely did. This is not 100% my style, but I did like the linear feel of having all of my photos on that left side because they are completely related to each other. They're not three completely separate people or places or anything like that. And so I thought having them grouped together made sense, and going with a big, long title is, again, something new. I love the opportunity to try something new. Now, once I get these pieces together, it's going to say, at first it says frozen together. And I'm not only talking about the trees, I'm also talking about my family who was stuck at home for a week. Kids didn't have school, and my husband was working from home, and it was crazy. But we were very happy to have each other and be very glad my husband was working from home, because I would have worried endlessly about him driving on this ice. It ends up changing the title a little bit to Frozen Yet Together, and I think that just adds a little extra oomph to the layout, because yes, everything was frozen, but at least we were together, which was kind of nice. So in the pocket, I will end up off camera adding a little 3x4 card that has some ideas of things that we did while it was so cold outside. And it was things like playing board games, watching movies, drinking hot chocolate, all the lovely things you do in the winter that we don't normally do a whole lot of because our winters don't usually include a great deal of snow or ice, occasionally ice, but not usually much snow. And this year was wild. We actually had the entire city shut down for about a week because Mississippi does not have snow plows. Wild, guys. I'm from Michigan. I have much more experience than these folks do with snow. And you need snow plows if you're gonna go anywhere. So I also had this little acetate snowflake from the kit. Everything on here is from the kit except the doily. And I'm just trying to pull in bits and pieces to capture that pink and yellow. Tried adding some papers underneath of the pocket, and I really liked how that looked. I thought it gave it a little bit more presence on the layout, as well as helping to tie it in to the left side so it doesn't look like a completely separate layout over here on the right. It does tie in from side to side. And then I decided to go ahead and move this word frozen up, and then I'll add in the yet underneath of it. And the reason that I did this is because I wanted to put a floral cluster at the top right of that pocket. See where I'm pointing at right now? That's me talking to myself while I scrapbook, saying, I think I need to put something right here. I need to put some florals or something right here just to make it a little bit more interesting with this cluster. So I've moved my frozen together, and I'm going to add some florals, and when I realized there was still a little extra space there, I added in the yet, just because it made sense and filled in the space. Otherwise, that becomes trapped space underneath of the frozen. So you see you have that area there that's just white space and there's nothing there, but there's also no open area around it. That is trapped space. And that is something that design-wise, I try to avoid on my layout as much as possible. This is why I normally cluster my photos, the embellishments, and the title and the journaling all close in together and don't leave big open spaces between them, is because that trapped space looks awkward. It just does. And so in this case, I'm going to go ahead and add in my yet. As soon as I started adding florals there, I realized I needed a little bit longer title. So went ahead and looked for the yet. Now, these alphas have a very interesting look to them. Some of the letters are not entirely recognizable. The F, for example, was really difficult for me to pick out. The Y took me an extra minute, and so did the N, because they're just kind of strange. I don't dislike them. I just am not used to them. And so I wasn't sure about those at first. But now that they're on the layout, I actually really like the way that they look. I think they give it kind of a funky, handwritten look, and I kind of like that. So adding these florals up here to the top right of my pocket will again fill in that trapped space, and it also helps to kind of give a little nod to the floral cluster that I've added on the journaling spot to the left. And so that's what we're tying in both sides together. And so that white space in the middle doesn't feel quite so overwhelming to the layout or too dividing from the layout. I've also added a scalloped acetate on the left side, sliding down the photos from that floral cluster for a little bit of added interest. And I'm going to bring in some of these hearts that came off of the alpha as well. These will bring this little bit of silver all around the layout. I separated my words yet and together with a heart just for a bit of fun. Again, there was a little bit of trapped space there I didn't like the look of, and so I added a little heart. I'm going to bring in this little chipboard piece, and initially I was going to put it at the bottom, and I kind of wish that I had, but I chose to put it at the top instead. Later, off camera, I will actually pull that off and move it to the bottom of the pocket side so that it doesn't draw quite so much attention to itself, because it kind of was doing that and creating this kind of separated look that I didn't really want. I wanted that left side to feel like one big cohesive piece and not like three separate photos, if that makes sense. Bring in some of the puffy phrases to add around the page, just a little bit of fun. I like to put a lot of words on my layouts. As you can tell, I have a lot of words inside of me, so they tend to explode onto my layouts at every opportunity. Now finishing up, I'm just going to add some enamel dots around the page. This is my scattering. This is what I do near the end of the layout before I do some wild and crazy splattering. Now I'm going to bring in both the silver and the gold on this layout. I don't normally mix metals, But hey, I'm already doing a challenge. I might as well push myself a little bit further. So adding in some silver Nuvo drops, and then I'm going to come in with a Heidi Swap Color Shine in gold and splatter with the gold. The way I can get away with that, there's a lot of yellow on this page, and the Heidi Swap Color Shine will simply read as yellow. But this is it for the layout. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. But until next time, bye y'all.